If you are an avid horror reader, you probably have heard of or read some of the books in the Rewind or Die series published by Unnerving magazine. And if you haven't read any of them, I really think you should. The books in the Rewind or Die series are super short horror novellas. All of them are on Kindle Unlimited and they are super fun. Let me read to you how they are described by the publisher. Imagine your local movie rental store back in the 70s, 80s and 90s. Remember all those fantastic covers. Remember taking those movies home and watching in awe as the stories unfolded in nasty rainbows of gore. Remember the atmosphere and textures. Remember the blood. My name is Michelle's Melancholia, where we read books to fear and shed a tear. And today we are talking about the Rewind or Die books I have read and the ones I want to read. So I have actually only read 5 books in this series. There are 35 of them. And after only 5 books, I can confirm that the description I read to you is very accurate. As I said, these books are a ton of fun. Admittedly, the writing and the plot quality-wise are a bit hit or miss, but I'd say even that truly embodies the spirit of that experience where you grab an old horror VHS tape and you don't really know what to expect. Also, these books are so short that even if you don't end up loving the story, it will still be a super fun experience and you won't have invested that much time. So for me, they have really been worth it. First, let's talk about the ones I have read, and this will be in the order that I read them. So the first I read was Cirque Berzerk by Jessica Guess. This is probably the most popular book in this series. It is a horror booktube and horror bookstagram darling. Most people love it and I loved it too. This is about a group of teenagers that back in the 80s carried out a massacre in a carnival and then they disappeared. So it is rumored that they are still there haunting the carnival. And the carnival is now abandoned. So when a group of teenagers decide to explore the carnival grounds, well, chaos ensues. In this one, you get all the blood and guts that you would expect from a slasher. And yes, I loved all the kills in this book, but I also loved the friendships that are portrayed in this story. This one is about 170 pages, so it's a bit on the longer side, but in my opinion, it was totally worth it. Then I read Blood Lake Monster by Renee Miller. This is about a woman who goes missing while she's walking home from work and she is never seen again. So it is assumed that she was victim of a crime. Years later, her sister comes back to this town, which I should say is by a lake, and she starts investigating what happened to her sister and how it relates to certain monster that is rumored to live under the water. This one was also pretty good. I remember the beginning was so strong, setting up the backstory of what happened to this woman. All the events surrounding her disappearance really got to me and made me really angry and invested in the story. That's why I hoped I would have gotten a little bit more character development regarding both the woman who disappeared and her sister. Towards the end, the story felt a bit rushed to me, but it's a short book and in general it was a very satisfying revenge story. Then more recently I picked up The Kelping by Jan Stinchcomb, and this one takes place in a seaside town where there is a tradition to crown a king of the town, and they do this in a ceremony called the Kelping, in which 2 women dress up as mermaids and literally cover the man in kelp, as in the algae. So in this story we follow a particular man that has been named king and all the strange things that start happening to him after this ceremony. Unfortunately for me, this was way too weird. I felt like There was so much going on, and in the end, I never really understood how all the different strange occurrences connected to each other. I really just spent most of the book really confused. But if you like really weird stuff, maybe you'll be into these. I'd say it leans towards folk horror and there are maybe mermaids involved, but honestly I couldn't really tell you. I have also read Camp Neverland by Lisa Quigley, which was very short and very sweet. And by sweet, I mean the execution was good. The content matter is not sweet. It's actually quite violent. This is about a girl that goes off to art summer camp and kids start dying around her and then we find out the camp's secret. This read like if V. Castro wrote a Goosebumps book, and that's all I'm going to say because this one is so short and I don't want to spoil anything. You should just know it's fun and gruesome and summery, and you could read it in one sitting, maybe on a summer afternoon, so maybe you should do that. And finally, I have also read Dead Eyes by Evie Knight. This one I will actually talk more about in an upcoming vlog, maybe next week, but I enjoyed it so much. I do feel like I have to say that there is a word that is said in this book that is super offensive in the UK. I think in the US it's really not a big deal, so maybe that's why it was left there, but I did side-eye the book in that moment. Looking past that, however, the story was so creepy and so enjoyable. This story is also about a massacre that happened in the past and it's kind of repeating itself in the present, but this one happens in a house that was also a funeral home because that was like the family business of the people that lived there. And during a party, someone killed a bunch of people and took their eyes out. Hence the title of the book. And out of all the ones I have read, I would say this is the most disgusting one. You can just imagine all the things you can do to a person with the tools available in a funeral home. It's not pretty. Now, on to the ones I want to read. There are three that I'd say are very popular. The first one is Benny Rose, the Cannibal King by Hailey Piper. And I think in this one, Benny Rose is a killer, but he's like an urban legend, so he's not supposed to be real. And then one Halloween, some kids play some kind of prank involving this killer, and they find out he may actually be real. The next one I want to read is Hairspray and Switchblades by V. Castro, just because I want to read all of her books. And this one is about an exotic dancer who is also a shifter, and I think she can turn into a jaguar. I actually have no idea what happens in the story, but I'm sure she uses this ability to her advantage, and that's not good for other people. Knowing V. Castro, I'm pretty sure those people will be bad men. So obviously, I'm looking forward to reading this. I also want to read Transmuted by Eve Harm, which is about a trans woman looking to get gender-affirming surgery, but she doesn't have the money for it. So she ends up signing to a really sketchy experimental treatment, and that goes very wrong. This gives body horror, and you know I love that, so I need to read these. And then I've chosen three that I haven't heard anyone talk about, but I really want to read them just based on the description. The first one is The CatCreeper by Kevin A. Lewis. And this is about a group of tourists that get caught in a blizzard, so they have to stay in someone's mansion, and that someone has a cat. And I think the cat wants to eat the tourists. Then we have Soul Survivor by Zachary Ashford. This one is about reality TV contestants stranded in an island with killer koalas. I mean, the description doesn't explicitly say koalas, but the cover says koalas to me. And finally, the last one that I think sounds super fun is Dancing on the Edge of a Blade, the extended director's cut by Todd Rigney. And I want to read it just because the description sounds ridiculous. It's about a detective investigating a serial killer that eviscerates his female prey while dancing to pop songs. And the image I have in my mind right now is hilarious. I do enjoy a detective story, so I feel like these could be really fun. Let me know in the comments if you have read any of the Rewind or Die books. Which ones are your favorite? Which ones would you recommend? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!